Gran Turismo 7 needs B-spec back, because the longer Gran Turismo 7 goes on, the stranger it feels that a game with this many cars, this much history, and this much obsession with the detail still does not properly support the kind of endurance racing that older Gran Turismo games used to give us. And now that point feels even stronger, because Gran Turismo 7 has just added the Porsche 963, the BMW M Hybrid V8, the Ferrari 499P, the Peugeot 9X8, and a Porsche 911 safety car. So the game is leaning even harder into modern endurance racing, but it's still missing one of the systems that would actually make that side of the game feel complete. And that's what makes B-spec so important, because to a lot of Gran Turismo fans, B-spec did not replace racing. It made long distance racing workable. It let you share the load, manage the event, and still enjoy endurance style content, even if real life meant that you could not sit there and drive every single lap yourself. So today let's talk about why Gran Turismo 7 does need B-spec back, and if Polyphony was ever to bring this back the right way, it actually wouldn't be like a nostalgia thing. I think it would unlock the part of the current Gran Turismo 7 that still feels unfinished, the systems that actually make endurance racing work. Now, one of the biggest reasons people loved B-spec is really simple. It made long races actually practical. If you had work, dinner, kids, or just a normal life outside of the game, B-spec meant endurance racing was still something you could actually take part in, instead of something you had to write off completely. And that's something that I think we forget these days. Not everyone can sit down and manually drive for 3, 4, 6, or even 24 hours just to feel like they're getting the real experience. B-spec actually made endurance fit around real life, and that's exactly why it mattered. Now, Gran Turismo 7 does have the cars for endurance, but it's missing the systems, and it's why the absence feels even stranger now, because Gran Turismo 7 has, like I said, added all these hypercars. So the game clearly wants the look and feel of modern endurance racing, but it doesn't actually bother to make that part of the game work properly. And it's a contradiction. Gran Turismo 7 wants the prestige of hypercars, safety cars, prototypes, weather, day-night transitions, all of the proper endurance theatre, but when it actually comes to the glue to make it work together, it's still half built. And also, when people say, look, it's just going to be the game playing for you, they're missing the point. That was always the lazy argument against B-spec. Why would you want the game to drive for you? But that completely misses the point. B-spec was never about taking stuff away from you. It was about making it possible for you to get into endurance racing and make that long distance racing fit into real life. You weren't actually just putting the controller down and walking off like it was autoplay. You were actually managing pace, strategy, tyres, fuel, and the flow of a longer event. It actually made you feel like a team boss, but it didn't stop you feeling like a racer. And this could be huge for proper multi-hour races. It's quite interesting, because if B-spec does come back, GT7 could actually justify bringing back proper multi-hour races again. Spa for an hour is obviously nice, but B-spec is a kind of system that makes a 3-hour, 4-hour, 6-hour, or even longer races feel realistic to attempt. Because right now, I'd say GT7 is kind of like flirting with endurance racing without really committing to it, and B-spec would change that overnight. Now, Sophie is another massive addition here that could make B-spec better than ever. And now with Sophie in the game, B-spec could come back in a much smarter form than it had ever before. Instead of just being an old school AI driver, it could actually make you feel like you're managing a much more believable teammate or second driver, which makes the whole idea even more exciting. And that's where this stops being pure nostalgia, because if Polyphony combines the old B-spec idea with modern Sophie behaviour, they could make it feel more natural, more intelligent, and way more convincing than ever before. It wouldn't just be bringing back a mode, it would be something new that actually has never been done before. It'd also make grinding less painful, because a lot of people, why people want B-spec back is, to be much more blunt, grinding in GT7 gets really boring quickly. And B-spec wouldn't be a magical fix for the economy, but it would at least make that grind feel less repetitive and less exhausting, especially for players who still want to make progress without manually driving every single lap of every long race. Because let's be honest, a lot of GT7's credit grind is not hard, it's just tiring. So B-spec wouldn't solve every economy problem, but it would make progress feel less like a second job, and that alone I think would still make the game feel better for a lot of people. And now let's talk about why GT7 still feels incomplete without B-spec, and it's a bigger problem because GT7 has undoubtedly so many of the ingredients for endurance racing, but it feels weirdly incomplete when you look at the systems around it. So the cars are there, the tracks are there, the weather is there, the day-night cycle is there, but the actual structure to make the endurance racing possible is not. And that's why B-spec still keeps coming up, because people can feel that missing piece. People can feel it when the hypercars are added to the game, that there's still not really a way to drive them in an endurance format. And the gap is becoming more obvious. The more the game leans into these big prototype and long race vibes, it becomes more apparent on what the game's missing. And I also think it would make Gran Turismo feel a bit more Gran Turismo again. And this is why it matters a bit more than just like what you can put down on paper about B-spec, because there is a bit of nostalgia about it, if we're honest. It would make Gran Turismo have a bit more of a deeper connection to its history, more flexible, but also make it more strategic, and also make it more respectful of the fact that players want to engage with long races in different ways. That feels different these days to how it did in the past, when we all have phones and algorithms and social media. There's even more competition on our time. And GT7 just feels weirdly incomplete without B-spec, and it's part of a bigger problem because GT7 undoubtedly has so many of the ingredients for endurance racing, but when you look at what's missing, it just so blatantly feels incomplete. The cars are there, the tracks are there, the weather is there, the day-night cycle is there, but the structure that makes endurance racing truly work still is not. And that's why B-spec keeps coming up, because there is, if we're honest, a bit of nostalgia here. GT7 has the presentation, the veneer of endurance racing, the gloss of it, but not the functionality of endurance racing. And that gap is becoming more obvious the more the game leans into and tries to borrow vibes from endurance racing. And this is why I think B-spec matters more than people realise, because it would be respectful of people's time. It would recognise that people play games in different ways. It would also give people more ways to play, more room to play. It would kind of allow GT7 to try different things, knowing that it has B-spec to make that functional. But let me know what you think about B-spec and Gran Turismo 7. Do you think it should be added, or do you think it's not something they should concentrate on? Make sure to subscribe if you want to support my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.